Behind me is the San Diego border wall, what was once regarded as the best example of secure bordering in the United States. Now, this border wall section, it's now facing the same type of border crisis right here as the rest of the country.
We have open gaps here in San Diego that they're just coming in.
According to statistics from Customs and Border Protection, around 7.2 million illegal immigrants entered the United States under President Joe Biden alone. What is actually causing this crisis? Why is the federal government stopping states from denying entry to illegal immigrants? Why are they being given free food and free housing, cash handouts, other benefits, instead of being deported? Why are our tax dollars being used to bring in illegal immigrants to the United States? What are the real reasons behind it? The American people have a right to know. And so my team and I set up to find the answers. And an investigation would take us all along the U.S.-Mexico border into the NGO bus drop-offs, through the United Nations operations, and into the camps in the jungles of Panama.
Unattended luggage.
Hey Josh, Michael Yon here. Just calling with some details about the itinerary. Our mission will be to go to the Darien Gap. It's on the Pan American Highway that goes all the way from South America up to Alaska.
We met with war correspondent Michael Young.
You're going to see mostly military-age males.
He spent the last few years investigating the operations throughout Latin America to facilitate mass migration.
Hey Josh, Michael Yon again. Another thing, repeat after me. I will not brush my teeth with the water in Darien. The water has been contaminated, they believe, from all the dead bodies in the river.
People looking to mass migrate to the United States fly into countries in South America that do not require visas. They then take a deadly 3 to 4 day march through the jungles of the Darien Gap, the only place where the Pan American Highway breaks.
The Pan American Highway, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only place it's not connected is the Darien Gap. Is that right?
That's right. That's why they call it the Gap, or here they call it the Tampon de Darien, the plug of Darien, right?
During his investigations, Michael uncovered a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project designed to connect Colombia to Panama and bridge the dangerous Darien Gap.
So Michael, how would this bridge help the migrants?
It's an invasion route to the United States. It's even more direct. You know, you could literally put all of South America over that bridge eventually, right? Nobody knows how many people are coming into the United States right now. They're not all coming through Darien, but I've been watching them build the infrastructure down here for, well, I've been coming down since 3 years now, right? Now, Panama has wanted to keep this jungle for years because it precludes invasion by land from the south, right? From like Colombia, because this used to be Colombia. This will just make it a drive.
Simple drive.
You just fly into Brazil or wherever, get on buses and all that, and you're in San Diego.
There you go.
But for now, the only way across the Darien Gap is the jungle and its migrant camps. With the help of Michael and our guides, we're able to gain access to areas otherwise off limits.
This camp is called Lajas Blancas. It is one of the most, one of the epicenters of the Darien Gap, coming out of the Darien Gap camp. Get that.
We met with Mexico-based journalist Oscar Ramirez.
Here is where they move from one village to another. They transport themselves in canoes, and from here they are moved to the borders of Costa Rica. The cost of every ticket and every bus ticket, it is $60. So you will see a lot of people just waiting here.
So everybody here, except I guess the people working at these places, everybody here, these are people trying to enter the United States?
All of them.
All of them?
Yes, the majority of them, 90 to 100% of them, they are trying to go to the United States.
I see. So roughly how many people are here right now? Do we even know?
Well, of the flow that is coming down every day on a daily basis from Colombia to over here, they're saying that 1,000 to 1,200 people per day. So we're talking about that 7 days a week, almost 10,000 people that are coming in through this particular migrant camp.
I see. So these people would have already gone through the Darien Gap then? They've already gone through the jungle and everything like that?
Yes.
What is that journey like? What do they have to deal with?
Horrible. Yes, I've been through that. I have seen decomposed bodies. I have seen people with the difficulties of drowning. Have seen, how the cartel has been raping and abusing and stealing from migrants. The multiple mudslides, the rivers, the current, The terrain, it is just horrible. The mountains with the ropes, and it's just the dangers of just putting your children through this. It's just horrible. It's just a horrible journey. It's hell. It is described by all these coyotes and these traffickers. It is described like an easy journey, but it's hell. It is really hell on earth.
Jeez.
¿Y qué es que está pasando en Ecuador?
Ya está, hay como 17 bandas delictivas.
We had the opportunity to speak to several of the migrants about the hardships they experienced on the journey and what caused them to leave their homes in the first place.
So I'm asking him, he's from Ecuador. The gangs have taken over the whole country. ¿Y a dónde van? ¿Tiene familia allá? ¿Y en qué estado?
Yo en New Jersey.
He's going to New Jersey. He has family there. Miami. Tiene familia ahí también. Y hay muchos ecuatorianos veniendo ahora, ¿no?
Sí, ya subieron como 2 camiones y estamos como 2 camiones más aquí.
¿Y cómo fue su tiempo en la selva?
Muy duro.
Muy duro.
La mayoría no lo recomiendo. Nos han robado. A mí me robaron.
We heard similar stories the next day at Bajo Chiquito, deep in the jungle in the territories of the Embera Indians.
What they just came through was the jungle, and there they said they're getting robbed.
¿Ustedes volverían a cruzar la selva de nuevo?
No?
Why not? ¿Por qué no?
They said they're getting raped.
So they raped a woman in front of her husband. He tried to defend her, and they killed him with rocks.
They killed him with rocks.
They killed him.
We had one woman tell us that her husband was murdered right in front of her. They were walking through the jungle coming here, right, trying to get to these boats, which of course drop them off here. When they were walking through the jungle, they said that they saw a woman getting raped, and the husband tried stopping this rape from happening. When he tried stopping the rape from happening, the bandits stoned him to death in front of her eyes. We've seen sick children. We've seen people who said there's dead bodies all over the place.
Dead bodies. A lot of dead bodies.
Really? And the people pushing this are leading people to their deaths.
Pues porque Joe Biden también está dando la oportunidad. Pero con Biden, yes.
So he's coming because Joe Biden told him.
Yes.
Told the borders open.
Yes.
They have United Nations facilities here, checking people in, getting things set up, getting them registered, sending them north. They have guides on how to, all the different passageways and routes they can take. They're being encouraged. So you can see right here, there's some new ones coming in, and they would have just come through the jungle. They have to pay money. The Embera Indians run these boats. They pay for it. They bring them up. They bring them to be processed by the United Nations in their facility. Then they get sent further north. And the cartels, and actually paying the cartels, are a needed part of the process because of the way it's set up. The NGOs, are they necessitating the use of the cartels?
Well, they know, and the cartels know that, the NGOs, where there's an open border gap, let's per se, and they're smuggling people, they know that an NGO is going to be there to receive them with baby wipes and Pampers and food. So what are they going to do? They're going to deliver them, and what they say to the migrants is that, don't worry, there's an NGO on the other side that is going to receive you and is going to process you immediately and is going to deliver you to Border Patrol. So it's a facilitation.
Jeez, look at that. What are the vultures normal here, or is that only because
vultures are always here? Just there's all kinds of defecation, there's all kinds of nastiness everywhere.
Were they here before the migrants?
I doubt it. I'm sure this was a really clean, beautiful little village back in the day.
I'm sure. I can imagine.
Yeah.
The presence of these camps, facilitated by the United Nations and other affiliated NGOs, has completely transformed the indigenous communities along the migration routes and has incentivized many to abandon tradition and become coyotes and bandits. Matthew Tomlett, one of our guides, saw it firsthand.
What's happened is the trail has grown and grown and grown, and this village has been destroyed in a lot of ways. And yet there are people making a lot of money off of what's going on here. The indigenous now, the kids don't want to go to school. They don't want to farm. They just want to be coyotes, or they want to be boat drivers for the migrants. And
so the kids are seeing that that's where the money is. So because the kids are going to determine the future of the tribe.
Exactly.
And the kids now, they want to be coyotes, like running migrants. Is that it?
Absolutely.
Throughout the camps, we found one common trait. All of them had a large presence of the United Nations and connected NGOs. We made several attempts to speak with them at the various camps.
So these were all UN facilities then, tents and...
Yeah, all of them. They're facilitated by the UN.
UN migration.
Yeah, it's close.
No, nobody home.
Nobody's there to help.
Yeah, let's see.
When you need them, nobody's there to help.
All right, so what's this one? This is Trabajando Juntos?
Well, they have a lot of them. You know, you got the Red Cross from Panama, you have the Union, the European Union.
Well, United Nations, of course, in here too.
Yes.
If you knock, do they ever answer?
No.
No?
No one's
really?
there.
Nobody in? Okay. You are safe here. UNHCR. Let's see if they're home.
And you got your typical, you're safe here, Josh.
I'm safe. There we go. So even on the other end, there's even more of them.
Yes, it's all the way to the back.
One after the next.
Y esta póliza de migración de las Naciones Unidas que permite migración ilegal.
Para responderle esas preguntas, tal vez tendrán que ser otras personas más superiores a nosotros.
We're with EPOCH TIMES. Can anybody talk to them? How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Doing well.
We are not authorized to talk.
Hello?
The people who might be able to help us are in the main building.
Where are they located? Where? Here in the City of Knowledge in Panama, trying to knock on the United Nations building. So, see if they'll be willing to speak with us. They're currently ignoring our emails, so maybe they'll talk to us in person. I just saw like 5 or 6 of them in there. They just ducked behind a wall, so it's kind of weird behavior for the UN, right? Hello?
Eventually, we did manage to schedule an interview through the City of Knowledge Foundation. A representative said she could arrange the interviews with the local United Nations representatives for us. When we showed up the next day for the scheduled interview, however, we were told the meeting had been canceled.
She said she's not here? Yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
Then we were told the representative had a meeting, then we were told she wasn't there. We also sent email requests to the press representatives we were told to contact. All of them rejected the request for interview. It all seems very strange. The United Nations runs a very large operation in Panama. They appear to be the main force in all this. So why won't they talk about it? It's a fair question to ask. To what extent is the United Nations facilitating the border crisis? How much power do the NGOs operating alongside it have in these countries? We sat down to speak with Oriel Ortega, the former head of Senafront and a key advisor to the president of Panama. One of the things I was surprised to find was that there were a lot of NGOs, and the United Nations have a very heavy presence in these camps. What are you aware of in terms of the involvement of the NGOs and the United Nations in this migrant crisis?
Se han ido incrementando. There have been increasing number of non-governmental organizations from both the United Nations and other kinds in Panama since 2016, which, more than making a positive contribution to the situation or to control it, they have created an incentive by the way they sell the crisis to these vulnerable people. My concept is these organizations should not be here in Panama doing this work, but in the countries where people migrate, controlling it so they don't migrate.
Far from helping the situation by displaying detailed migration routes to the United States, including detailed bus stops, temperatures, altitudes, and even bus kiosk locations, it could be argued the NGOs are defying the laws of Panama.
We're here in Canan Mombrillo. This is one of the Embera Indian villages, and it's also one of the larger migrant camps. Look at this barbed wire fence. Right on the other side of this, and this is right in the middle of the village, is UNHCR, the United Nations. You can see their rainbow trail on the other side, and of course their sign, UNICEF and the Red Cross. Right here under the United Nations tent is a board with the laws of Panama. According to Senafront, Article 456F of Panamanian law, that it is illegal if you drive, promote, or finance the activities of illegal immigration. 15 to 20 years in prison if you violate this, meaning all these international organizations, these different people promoting it, driving it, and so on, are violating the laws of Panama, and they are overriding the laws of Panama because, as it says, migración illegal.
Attorney General Ken Paxton recently sued one of the NGOs in Texas, and he's accusing this NGO of facilitating human trafficking and, of course, mass migration into Texas. Is Panama able to take action against these NGOs for facilitating this mass migration?
The truth is, that would be very, very difficult because, for example, we signed the Global Compact for Migration, which includes a number of benefits for migrants.
We learned about the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, one of the key United Nations agreements behind the global migrant crisis. The United States originally joined the agreement under Barack Obama. Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the agreement in 2017. But Joe Biden brought the U.S. back into the compact in 2021 after he took office.
And we thought that by signing this pact, we were going to have a benefit in favor of there being control, because one of the principles of the pact is that migration must be safe, organized, and regular, and at this moment, it does not meet any of those three conditions. On the contrary, the government of Panama has been sued by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights.
As head of the Panamanian Border Control Unit, SENAFRONT, Mr. Ortega witnessed the true power of these NGOs. When a nation like Panama cracks down on the cartels, secures their border, and saves lives, the NGOs sound the alarm, the UN files suit, and the mainstream press begins a smear campaign.
And they're getting attacked by these globalists, making them look inhuman when they, save lives and they protect their own sovereign nation. That's what they do.
What have you seen in terms of these guys defending the migrants? What have you personally witnessed?
What I witnessed in the three times that I have been in, but they saved again thousands from being robbed, thousands from being abused, and they saved a lot of children from drowning at their way out. The river was really high and it was really difficult to get out.
We understand that in Panama, if the government tries to enforce border laws, they get sued by the NGOs. It seems like SENAFRONT is trying its best to provide security for something that they're being overridden by international powers.
That's the main problem of this issue. It is the global compact on migration that is perpetuated by the United Nations, and the United Nations has power over governments because they make them sign this global compact. There's more than 154 countries that gives the ability to NGOs to work freely in these poor countries. I was walking in a caravan and the Intelligence Department of Mexico told us, the journalists, you have infiltrated individuals from the violent group Tren de Aragua cartel operates from a prison in Venezuela. And I recorded this, one of the migrants was threatening a National Guard with a knife. He was telling them that if they will not give them papers, there will be blood shed on that soil.
They're throwing rocks.
It is really sad to see that.
They're hitting the National Guard officers.
The United Nations aids that to continue. The NGO, instead of stopping people from suffering and stopping people from being trafficked and abused, what they're doing is aiding the cartel to continue and continue and continue and continue.
The NGOs, through this process, are aiding and abetting the cartels.
Yes. They're not educating the migrant to do a process correctly. They're violating their own global compact on migration. Because in the global compact says you need to migrate safely, regular, documented, and peacefully. We have seen that all four of them, they're not compliant by the global compact on migration, and they're blaming every institution of security. So they're basically creating a crisis and creating chaos, and the only ones that they have the solution, it is them. Now it is a business, Josh. It is not migration because people are suffering. For these NGOs and the cartels and other organizations, it is a humanitarian business now.
I was just in Reynosa, Mexico in late 2021 in a camp, big establishmentarian camp with all the NGOs there serving, several thousand immigrants, wandering around, and lo and behold, there's a card table with 3 or 4 workers on folding chairs with a big stack of credit cards and a big long line of immigrants, and I just kind of moseyed up to it and said, "What's all this?" And they said, "Oh yeah, these are the debit cards. We're giving these debit cards to the immigrants." And I took some photos. I interviewed some of the immigrants. I interviewed the employees who were handing them out. They said this is from the IOM.
IOM stands for the International Organization for Migration. Under who else? The United Nations. Under the Biden administration, nearly $1.3 billion of U.S. taxpayer money was given to the UN and other agencies assisting migrants in 2023, including direct cash assistance. For 2024, the UN Orchestrated Regional Refugee and Migrants Response Plan allocated $372 million in cash and vouchers. That comes in the form of prepaid debit cards, food, water, shelter, medical care, and transportation, according to the UN. Migrants can also directly receive cash in what the UN Emergency Manual calls cash in envelopes.
They get $400, a little under $400 every 2 weeks, rechargeable every 2 weeks. We hand out lots and lots of these. Took a couple pictures, took some video, and tweeted it out. It went viral. And then I think people started to call me a liar, that I kind of made it up, and there were some fact checks. But those challenges drove me to do a deeper dive repertorially, and I found that this is part of a vast international program called cash-based intervention.
What is that program part of? Have you looked into what cash-based intervention is part of?
Well, it's according to United Nations documents, it's part of, it's one of the pillars, 7 or 8 pillars of needs-based assessments of migration and goals for outcomes to support them. It's something called the Grand Bargain, which is a 2016 pact. It has its own website that's seated on the United Nations platform. It's all right there. It talks about, cash-based intervention shall be a primary goal, that we will dedicate our efforts to moving donor money, state donor money from Treasury through us to migrant on the trail.
We drove up this mountain. Where are we currently?
We're up in Otay Mountain here in San Diego.
Who gave us a behind-the-scenes look at how illegal immigrants are being arrested, processed, and then released onto the streets of the United States.
And we can see the very long border wall, which ends right here.
Yeah, abruptly ends there. Obviously, a huge gap. You could walk in from Mexico into the United States unimpeded.
So what caused this very large opening in the wall here?
Well, President Joe Biden decided to reverse the Trump executive orders in order to completion of the border wall. Any construction on the border was ceased. I mean, we have open gaps here in San Diego that they're just coming in.
Another group coming in?
Yes, another group is coming in.
So Border Patrol right now is processing these people. We came up, they were waiting, Border Patrol arrived. What is the process they're going through right now?
Well, here they're screening the individuals for weapons or illicit items, and they're putting them in their baggage compartments there, provided a baggage claim, and they're being separated. And then shortly they'll be put on the shuttle bus here and processed over to the migrant center here.
I see. And what happens once they're at the migrant center?
Yeah, they're provided their food and nourishment if they need it, and then they're processed over 72 hours. That's all we can hold them for, and then processed over to the bus.
Oh, we're in San Diego. Right behind us is one of the buses coming up from the border. What is this?
These are people that are illegally entered the country, requested asylum, and now they've been at the processing facility for 72 hours. And that's all we could hold them for, and now they're being street released, free to go in America.
Wait a minute. So these when we hear Border Patrol arresting people, and news headlines are saying the arrests are up, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is it. Yeah.
So they arrest them, process them, hold them for 72 hours, and then drive them into the city and then just let them all go.
Once they request asylum, this is the process here. Obviously, they're given a court date to appear. 90% of the time, they won't show up to the court hearing.
So just to clarify then, when Border Patrol arrests these individuals, they're not deporting them, they're processing them.
No, we're processing them. You're absolutely right.
Well, Mayor, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So we're here in El Cajon, and right behind us is the bus station. This is one of the areas where in this town, they're dropping people off. Can you tell me about what you've seen personally here?
Well, there's 3 drop-off stations in San Diego, and they immediately, the NGOs swarm on them, get them into another bus, take them to another location. I've been told at that point they again switch into smaller buses, which take them to the airports. So, a lot of my concern is why all the cloak and dagger? Why are we being so stealthy about this?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what seems strange to me too. Is it looks like the people running this are trying to not be noticeable. You're the mayor here, and they're doing it right here. I mean, what do they tell you on why they're doing it?
They don't tell us anything.
You're the mayor, and they don't tell you.
No, we get no information from the federal government, no information from the state government. We get a little bit of information from the Border Patrol, but the NGOs won't talk to us at all.
Every step of the investigation has shown a different piece of how the mass migration into the United States is being coordinated. We know border agents have catch and release orders. Our own government is helping facilitate the operations in collaboration with the United Nations and various NGOs. But a big question still remains. Why are they doing this?
They're trying really to dismantle the border to bring in more Democrats so that they can do what they did in California, essentially turn a Republican state into a Democrat state with a perpetual majority that can never be challenged. There's no question about it. That's not speculation. Some of these people have gone on record and publicly talked about this, people close to Barack Obama.
It puts 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters. Can you imagine if we have even the same ratio? 2 out of 3. If we have 80 million new voters that care about our issues and will be voting, we will create a governing coalition for the long term.
But I think it goes much, much deeper than this. The primary objective, is to facilitate massive migratory flows to undermine the sovereignty of the nation state and really ultimately dismantle the nation state as a sovereign entity.
The UN's Global Compact for Migration explicitly respects national sovereignty, allowing for nations to regulate migration in their own territory. But according to researcher Alex Newman, that commitment is undermined by their broader ideology.
The Global Compact on Migration, in this compact, one of the guiding principles of the compact was actually, to summarize it in my own terms, to propagandize the target populations to believe that it is right and proper for them to accept essentially unlimited migration.
According to the United desirable. And according to the United Nations documents, like the 2000 draft report by the UN Population Division, replacement migration was projected as a means to bolster declining native birth rates.
And I think when you really dig down, the ultimate objective was actually revealed by the former UN migration czar, the late Peter Sutherland.
The United States or Australia and New Zealand are migrant societies, and that therefore they accommodate more readily those from other backgrounds than we do ourselves, who still nurse a sense of our homogeneity and difference from others, which is precisely what the European Union, in my view, should be doing its best to undermine.
According to its officials like Peter Sutherland, migration to the West is necessary to develop a multicultural state.
The demographics are a key element in this debate and a key argument for, I hesitate to use the word because people have attacked it, for the development of multicultural states.
And so there are some places where you see these things coming to pass. Certain parts of Northern and Western Europe are good examples where now the native populations are literally in the minority in their own major cities. They're bringing in people so rapidly from all over the world, from all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different religions. What does it mean to be a nation anymore? So when you facilitate these enormous migratory flows, you undermine people's, first of all, attachment to not just their nation, but also their nation state. And this facilitates the emergence of first regional governance and then global governance, which is the ultimate objective. And these are what's called soft law. There is no official way for the United Nations to impose this on us per se, right? There's no court that could say, well, the United States isn't complying with its obligations under this compact, and so we're going to sanction it. But as this body of soft law is built up, it provides government bureaucracies with guidance, and over time, it starts being incorporated into court rulings, it starts being incorporated into the domestic regulatory apparatus, and even into statutory law. And pretty soon, you're bound by these things, even though it was never ratified in the appropriate manner.
We've bound our power to international laws and institutions. I am convinced that in the long run, giving up some freedom of action, binding ourselves to international rules over the long term enhances our security.
You know, I'm looking at multiple layers of the agenda because, you know, I've been researching, of course, what's happening, but I want to know why it's happening. And I'm looking at a few different layers. I believe so far that there's a US layer, there's a UN layer, and there's kind of a global communist layer to it.
Recently, there's been a significant uptick of Chinese nationals crossing the border, some 30,000 in the past 4 months. The Clan del Golfo cartel, Colombia's largest narco-trafficking gang, have even made border-crossing advertisements for Chinese migrants. And when we visited the small Embera Indian town of Puerto Limon, we found shops heavily catering to Chinese migrants.
So this is Puerto Limon, between two of the main migrant camps. This is a waypoint. This one seems to be really catering to the Chinese. This is all the different Chinese foods they have, ramen, drinks, and everything else. But this sign is something really important. This one here that we found, it's in Chinese, so it's catering, of course, to the Chinese. It tells them that from the village to the United States, that they can take care of everything, and you can pay here for every single waypoint they claim. It even has the contact information. So this organization claims to be basically facilitating this.
Chinese social media platforms have hashtags providing advice on the overland journey through Latin America to the United States. The FBI has documented thousands of cases of Chinese nationals being investigated for or found guilty of spying.
Now, of course, many of these people will genuinely be looking for a better life, but many of them will be coming for subversive purposes. Many of them, as we've seen already with what's happening on the border right now, will be special operators from various militaries around the world, including the People's Liberation Army in China. There is a fifth column in the United States that absolutely wants to destroy this country, that is passionately dedicated, as Rich Higgins, the Director of Policy and Planning on the National Security Council, said during Trump, to the destruction of the United States, not just as a nation, but even as an idea. And to do that, you have to bring in people who would serve as a catalyst to that process. And I believe that's a big part of what's going on. We've had congressional hearings where they've talked about special forces from Communist China coming across that border. Why are they doing this? Well, they want to bring down the United States.
The Chinese are not just using their own migrants as a weapon of mass migration, but as our research team discovered, the CCP is also financing the migration's nuclear bomb. Infrastructure projects that will complete the Pan American Highway.
And that's a huge difference for the United States and for all the Americas, right? So this is, and actually there's a book that was written by CCP, but through a Panamanian economist. It's in Spanish, but I got it in English as well. And it talks about, in there, about going through the Darien and, basically opening it up.
Wow. Well, that makes sense because China's doing all these, aside from maybe their interest in mass migration, they've been trying to gain control of the Panama Canal.
The CCP already has a foothold throughout Latin America with its extensive Belt and Road Initiative. It has a stake in multiple ports and railways and has forged military partnerships with several countries. US leaders have grown increasingly wary of the military implications of Chinese infrastructure projects, particularly around the Panama Canal. A highway through the Darien Gap stands to both diminish the importance of the Panama Canal and much more easily facilitate mass migration to the United States.
CCP is down there in Ecuador and other places working on ports and this sort of thing in Costa Rica, what they're doing in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, and whatnot. But the bottom line is the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is making a go for all of Central America.
Something else stood out in my research. The agenda to create a so-called multipolar world order, which requires the destruction of the so-called unipolar world order, the current global system led by the United States. The narrative has been echoed by leaders in many parts of the world, including many in the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and from Russian President Vladimir Putin to CCP leader Xi Jinping. It raises a key question of whether mass migration also ties into the agenda for a so-called multipolar world order. One of the narratives that you hear from Vladimir Putin, from Alexander Dugin, from Xi Jinping himself, is this idea of a multipolar world order. And they keep saying that in order to create the multipolar world order, they first need to take down the unipolar world order, a reference, of course, to the United States. Can you explain to me the understanding of Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin as it relates to this multipolar world order agenda?
Well, the multipolar world agenda is a euphemism for destroying the United States. There will not be, if the United States is taken down, there will not be a multipolar world from that time. There will not be all these different centers of power around the world. There will be one. It'll be basically a combination of Russia and China dictating to everybody around the world.
How does this mass migration agenda relate to this multipolar world order agenda?
Well, you know, you've got, see, basically the main pole in the world right now is the United States and its European allies. The big pole in the tent pole is the United States. If you can collapse that pole by bringing millions of illegals into the United States who have no particular loyalty to the American system, to change the demographics, to change the voting patterns, to create chaos, health issues, terrorism incidents, riots, just basic civil chaos, which means that Iran, Russia, China can have a field day. We'll see chaos on a global scale until America is extinguished and the power shifts completely to the east. So this whole scheme of multipolar thing is a euphemism for destroying the United States and shifting the unipolar world east to another pole, which will be way, way, way harsher than anything we've ever seen out of America.
As our investigation draws to a close, several key points stand out. Yes, the United Nations is playing a heavy hand in running the border crisis. NGOs are being used as the boots on the ground to carry out many of these programs. The United Nations and the NGOs are being suspiciously secretive about this. This, of course, explains what we're watching on the surface, the migrant caravans, the buses and planes moving people in the dead of night. In reality, this is all happening because our elected leaders agreed to it. It's being facilitated. And at the same time, there are many special interests at play. Potential impacts on our elections, global socialist programs on equity and shared global governance, and even hostile agendas to degrade the United States, to weaponize migration. Despite all of this, and despite the incredible scale of it all, voters are being kept in the dark. We're not being told directly about these agreements. The American people and all others in the world watching this, they deserve to know why.
Thank you all for watching this documentary and going on this pretty wild journey with us to learn more about weapons of mass migration. You know, when I first set out to make this documentary, it was kind of on the grounds of something I had uncovered before, but frankly needed more information on. You might remember a few years ago, I was at the US-Mexico border. I went into Mexico, and I was investigating the causes behind the migrant crisis. You know, I can tell you honestly, at the time when I first set off, I thought I was going to find the cartels running the whole thing. My impression was that the Mexican cartels were the ones facilitating it and running it, and they were the main, organization behind it. I was shocked to find that actually, yeah, they're running the lines, of course, at the border, but actually the United Nations and the US government are running it. I was shocked to find that there was an agreement with the United Nations. Again, the International Organization for Migration was facilitating it. US taxpayer dollars were going to it. The U.S. State Department even has offices cooperating with the IOM, International Organization for Migration, to facilitate this. And as I researched it further, I started finding there were other UN branches, NGOs, and other things. And frankly, it left a lot more questions than it did answers. I've been wanting to look more into this for a good while. I think we've been a bit, funny enough, maybe too far ahead of the curve for some people to accept. Only recently has it come out more publicly that actually, yes, the United Nations is helping facilitate the migrant crisis. But as a nation, we're still having, I think on many fronts, false debates. If we look, for example, at what a lot of the corporate media are saying, they're blaming it on Texas busing people to different states. They're saying, oh, it's Greg Abbott and he's sending people by bus. And you have California threatening to sue Greg Abbott for human trafficking because he's busing people. If you talk to a lot of people, that's the basis of what they're saying is the cause of it. But as we know, that's not really the case. If you were to talk to maybe a couple of government officials, they'd say that they need more money to fix the problem, that an executive order will not solve this issue. But there's a lot of disingenuous debate happening right now. They're not really saying what's the cause or what's really going on. In reality, we find that actually our own government has joined international programs with the United Nations to facilitate this. That no, it's not just Abbott, busing people around. Actually, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is working together with border authorities, processing people after they arrest them, and then giving them free airplane tickets and free bus tickets to anywhere they want to go. This is a crisis being bankrolled by our own tax dollars. And what I found to be even more shocking is that even local officials are not being told what's happening. Even the mayors in small towns in America are not being told what's happening in their own communities. When they can see on the surface, hey, there's these weird buses. Hey, why is DHS running these things? Hey, why is Border Patrol releasing these people on our streets? Why do they all have bus tickets? Why do they have plane tickets? And they're not being told why. I think as a country, if we're going to actually fix this issue, we need to know what's actually going on. And that's why I think this documentary is, frankly, really important for people to see. I hope with this that maybe we can correct the debate and we can have a real discussion as a nation on what's happening, why it's happening, and maybe how to fix it, frankly. So thank you all again so much for watching this. With that said, please share this with as many people as you can. We set up a special page just for this. You can either scan the QR code or go to the website on the screen right now to share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. We also have a system where you can pay it forward. You can let people watch the documentary for free, and you can help them find the truth. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being here. And again, please share this video. Help us get the word out. Thank you.